Bienvenidos a un capítulo más de Flow con Florido, siempre con información muy importante para todas las personas que llegan hasta aquí a Flow con Florido, ayudas nosotros en los Estados Unidos. Hoy tenemos un invitado muy especial. We have a really special guest. He is Mr. Michael Mogil, an attorney. Hoy tenemos al abogado Michael Mogil de Mogil Law Firm, from Mogil Law Firm, who is gonna clarify a lot of information, questions, and of course, things that are very important for us to know in this important year. Muchos temas importantes que usted debe conocer, sobre todo en temas de inmigración, aquí en el 2025, cuando están pasando muchas cosas en los Estados Unidos. So, Mr. Michael, welcome to this space of Flow with Florido, Flow con Florido, where we got the opportunity to talk with many of our audience and explain about what is happening nowadays here in the immigration terms. So welcome. I'm going to put my hat over here.
Camila, buenos dias.
Muchas gracias.
And thank you for having me. Where do you want to start?
I believe a lot of people, Hispanic community or many immigrants in the United States, doesn't matter from where they come from any country, would like to understand in reality what is happening today with the immigration in terms of there's new regulations or what are the new rules about from the government that we need to know.
Well, it's a complicated discussion, and obviously it gets a lot of attention on the national news stations and on social media, both English and Spanish speaking. The most important thing that everybody, if they don't know it already, has to realize is that immigration laws are generally created and passed by Congress. And then there's a certain amount of discretionary functions that each president can implement. So, for example, President Biden decided to grant temporary protected status to Venezuelans, Hondurans, and other people who came over during his term. And for the most part, they were admitted into the country with some parole, which means they were released and also given work permits and some status. That was not done by an act of Congress. So now we have a new president who's coming in and attempting very visibly to reverse all of those discretionary grants. The matters are getting to the courts now, both the deportation matters and the temporary protected status matters. It's going to take some time to get through the courts. And ultimately, I expect that the Supreme Court will rule on how much discretion or how much authority the president or the executive branch can have versus what is truly a function with Congress. Separate from what's going on the ground, it's my view that the current administration is really attempting to push Congress to make some decisions. As you know from being here many years, Congress has really never been able to pass immigration reform or a new immigration law that meets the status on the ground. And I think that what the president really wants to do is force Congress to act. And until then, he's going to put pressure on all of the various constituencies by refusing, denying, threatening. But at the end game, I think the idea is for Congress to act.
Well, that's a really good introduction because it's really important to understand how that works. Es muy importante entender cómo funciona esto, y lo digo en español porque a pesar de que hoy tenemos traducción gracias a las plataformas digitales, pero es importante tener en cuenta lo que nos dice el abogado Michael Mogil en términos de que, por ejemplo, los presidentes tienen algunas potestades de poder establecer algún tipo de protección para ciertos inmigrantes, como sucedió, muy bien lo decía el doctor Michael Mogil, por ejemplo, en el gobierno de Obama, cuando se crearon estos estados de protección temporal, o conocidos como el TPS, para Honduras, para Venezuela, pero hay determinados temas que deben ser atravesar o desarrollarse como proyectos de ley en el Congreso. Y eso es lo que muchas veces no se ha logrado, y lo que nos comenta el abogado, de que hoy pues el gobierno sin duda ha tomado otras determinaciones que puede hacer el presidente, pero al final del día no ha existido una verdadera reforma migratoria que debe atravesar el Congreso, que el Congreso finalmente es el que hace las leyes. Entonces, un poco de esto es la introducción de este panorama a la parte de migración. So this is a really good introduction about how we can understand and how it works, the United States government, because many times we don't understand that part. Mm-hmm.
Well, and I can add some perspective since I am involved with many cases in immigration court, with Immigration and Customs Enforcement, which we know as ICE, and also representing employers in the community who are dealing with compliance issues. And I can tell you that on the ground, what we're dealing with is not nearly as dire as the media might like to report what's going on. The same people who have worked in the court system and for ICE are still working there, the same people that have worked for most of the last 10 years. The judges, in my experience, are still applying the law in cases like asylum or cancellation of removal. They're still applying the same factors. The main difference has been that counsel for the Department of Homeland Security has not been given as much discretion to dismiss cases or as they were under the Biden administration, but they're more deferring to the judges rather than consenting to dismissals. But, ultimately, we haven't really experienced high-profile immigration raids in the Low Country as of now, at the end of April. They could happen, of course, but we haven't had reports of significant raids for employees or on work sites thus far, nor have we heard much about any issues up at the courthouse. So people shouldn't be afraid to go to court or to Charleston. So in some, more or less business as usual with maybe less leniency and stricter standards, which gets me to, can I continue? Mm-hmm. Which really leads me into the main point that I'd like to express to the community, and that is, with the advent of online filing, many people have applied for their own benefits, whether they're marriage visas or asylum or cancellation of removal or employment benefits on their own or through the help of notaries or other people in the community who for a small fee can help them. And that's fine. I mean, it's a way to save money, but at the end of the day, what we're experiencing is all matters are being pushed to immigration court right now. Anybody who's really not in the marriage adjustment process is being pushed to immigration court. And so it's really essential for people to get someone involved with their matter who is both in the court system, familiar with the rules and what needs to be proven, and can keep track of their matter. If they move, if their phone is shut off. We daily hear nightmare stories about people not being aware that they had court and missing court, mm-hmm. Or not filing what was necessary for the court to grant them the relief. So it's very essential that people, kind of stay away from the third parties who aren't really trained or in the system, but are just trying to make a quick buck and go. There are many skilled attorneys in this community or in other places that can help them. And it's probably one of the more important decisions you can make. And in particular, our firm does a lot in the area of asylum. I would guess that 75% of the asylums that I've reviewed that were filed by non-lawyers are defective and have no chance of being approved by the court. And what people have to realize is, however they got here, whether they overstayed a visa or were given parole or have been here for many years, at the end, they still have to have a defense, a claim for relief. And that claim for relief has to be proven in court, like every other matter in court, with evidence, with testimony, and it has to be supported by the law. And that's where we help people.
Super important, that information, because yes, I'm going to try to resume those 3 points que se acaban de decir. Voy a tratar de resumir esos 3 puntos tan importantes. El primero, como muy bien lo explica el abogado, prácticamente las mismas personas que han trabajado en inmigración, ya sea con ICE o las diferentes autoridades, son las mismas que han venido trabajando por los últimos 10 años. Entonces, lo que nos cuenta el abogado Michael Mogil, es que hoy lo que está sucediendo en muchos de los casos es que efectivamente, pues número uno, cualquier persona que llega a los Estados Unidos necesita un proceso de inmigración. Y número dos, pues sin duda, aquí en los Estados Unidos uno puede conseguir muchos preparadores para cualquier tipo de proceso de inmigración. Él nombraba varios de estos procesos, como el asilo o digamos una petición familiar o algunos de ellos, pero lo cierto es que muchas veces ha encontrado que estos preparadores pues hacen su misión, pero el gobierno de alguna manera está presionando para que casi todo vaya a corte. Y en corte, sin duda, se necesita un abogado. Y ahí es donde llegan finalmente muchas personas que de pronto hicieron su proceso de manera personal o de pronto utilizaron a un preparador, pero finalmente necesitan una defensa en corte. Por supuesto, cada caso es individual, pero es importante entender esto porque es allí donde al final de cada proceso pues se necesita una defensa jurídica y en términos generales pues dice el abogado Mogil que a veces es de pronto un poco más lo que uno escucha por los medios de comunicación o un poco más la preocupación que se genera en toda la comunidad de lo que realmente está sucediendo. Sin embargo, claro, las autoridades pueden tomar determinaciones, buscar personas que de pronto han cometido delitos. Eso se puede hacer. Lo que sí es cierto es que de pronto usted tiene que verificar su proceso para que de pronto sí tenga una verdadera defensa y si tiene que ir a corte, obligatoriamente tiene que tener un abogado. So, in resume, if in some reason you have to go to court, for sure you need to have an attorney. That is what is happening today. That many people, you were saying, yeah.
Well, what we're finding, Camilo, is in the past, over the past 4 years prior to the current administration, people were often given second and third chances. If they showed up without an attorney, the judge would say, come back in 60 days with an attorney. Now what we're seeing is the judges have less discretion because the judges work for Homeland Security, and Homeland Security wants to process these cases. So if people are showing up in court without an attorney, or if they're not showing up at all, the judges are dismissing the cases. So it's very important. And what we do, it's also important that you don't wait until the week before your court date to prepare. There's much evidence that can be gotten from the community here, from wherever your home country is if you're an immigrant. Just like any other court case, we like to prepare well in advance. Often there are 30-day deadlines where all evidence has to be submitted before 30 days before the hearing, and a lot of people who don't have an attorney don't know that, and they go to court and nothing is admitted because they didn't comply with the order. So, that's where we can help, and it's very important, not just for immigration, but for any matter that involves court, that you get some good legal advice.
That's very important. Let me say it here in Spanish so everybody got very clear this information. Bien, algo supremamente importante es que, sin duda, anteriormente las personas podían presentarse en corte y de pronto no llevaban un abogado y tal vez el juez decía, bueno, tráigalo después, en 60 días, o volvían y posponían esta audiencia. Hoy no es así. Hoy ya si usted no se presenta con abogado, pues debido, pues sin duda a que el gobierno ha puesto mucha atención en todos estos temas, pues simplemente se cancela el proceso y pues pueden venir unas consecuencias aún peores para usted, entre esas la deportación. Lo cierto es que, ¿cuál es la recomendación? Consiga el abogado y se tiene normalmente 30 días para enviarle a la corte las pruebas y cuál va a ser esa audiencia, es decir, una preparación previa de 30 días, cosa que cuando usted llega con su abogado pues ya está preparado todo absolutamente. Y es lo que nos cuenta hoy el abogado Michael, que muchas veces pues la persona llega a última hora a buscar ese abogado, se presenta en corte y pues claro, no se ha preparado la audiencia y pues seguramente pues es un proceso que será débil, ¿no? Que obviamente la decisión las toman los jueces. Well, what a really important information, because sometimes we don't understand that, for example, we have those 30 days that you just mentioned to prepare for court.
Well, right now, at the present time, many of our immigrants are protected by something called TPS, which the current administration attempted to terminate, and that matter is held up in court. At the end of the day, I suspect that the court is not going to deny the president's authority to not renew TPS because there's nothing in the statutes that requires a president to renew TPS. So for the people here who are under that category, they really do have to assert or be ready to assert a good defense. Many people assert asylum. There are strict standards for asylum. You have to realize that under 50% of the asylum cases nationally are approved, and for certain nationality groups, it's under 10%. Asylum is not easy. The statute requires a well-founded fear of persecution upon return, and that has to, proofs of physical harm, political activity. So it's complicated, and that's what we can help with.
Bueno, algo importante es que algunas personas están ustedes bajo el tratado del TPS y sin duda pues una de las cosas que ha tomado el gobierno actual es eliminar el TPS. Tal vez algunos jueces han dicho no, espere, eso ya es un derecho adquirido. Están en ese debate, pero lo cierto es que las personas que están en esos procesos sin duda pueden mirar qué otras alternativas de inmigración. Muy bien lo dice el abogado Michael Mogil, que el asilo pues puede ser una alternativa, sin embargo no es fácil, porque debe contener esos elementos, ya sea una persecución política, un tema racial, un tema violento, poderlo probar en corte, y no es fácil. Sin embargo, pues son algunas de las alternativas de lo que hoy está sucediendo en esta coyuntura. So for sure, this reality, it's important for the community and everybody to understand. And at the end, we also understand as Hispanic community that we want good people in our community, that we want people, of course, that come to do good in our community, and for sure that everyone needs to have an immigration process to become and be able to work and for sure project a good life here in the United States. We will really appreciate. So this information that you give it to us today for everyone is really important. What other recommendations do you think is very important to know?
Well, there's in addition to the marriage and cancellation of removal and asylum processes, I think most of your viewers and friends are aware that there are some employer sponsorship options that are a little bit more complicated. They require the participation of the employer and the employee and the employer's staff, and we can help with that. You may hear promises of quick results, but no, the visas in those areas are backlogged, so it's not going to be a quick process. But of course, if you're being sponsored by your employer, in the end, it may be a more realistic path towards legal status, and it's a lot less complicated to prove than an asylum case or a cancellation of removal case. So we definitely think that people should talk to their employers about that. And there's something else that, in talking to people in the community, I've learned, and particularly with the Spanish-speaking community, and perhaps the generations that didn't grow up with the computer, is that everybody, whether it's you, me, American-born person or a foreign-born person, should really have in place things called powers of attorney, which allow someone else to act for you if you're incapacitated, sick, detained overseas. Powers of attorney are essential for banks, for hospitals, to convey motor vehicles, to run businesses. Everybody who owns a business should have a good operating agreement, even if it's a family business, because those agreements might be the difference between transactions taking place or not in the event of a disruption, like an illness, a death, a detention, a deportation, things like that. And then there's the subject that nobody really wants to talk about, but that's death. And people should have a will. We call it in English a last will testament. And if they own real estate, they should consider having a trust. And these documents have legal force, and they dictate person's affairs after they pass so that it's not difficult for the family and a burden. And of course, we can help people with that. We can also help them in Spanish, although the documents are in English. And if they're not comfortable with English, we have people who can help translate for them and explain to them. So, beyond the immigration issues that you see every day, there are these practical issues that we really think everybody, whether they're American or foreign, should think about.
Qué importante. What important is for everyone to know this information, because we live every day, but we don't We never think that we're going to die, that is for sure is going to be our future. And look at this. So, para toda la comunidad, miren lo importante que nos acaba de decir el abogado. Independientemente, si usted es estadounidense, si no es estadounidense, es inmigrante, para todas las personas, qué importante es tener, uno, el poder, se llama power of attorney, en términos en inglés, que es darle un poder a un familiar, darle un poder a alguien de confianza, porque en cualquier momento, ya sea por una enfermedad, por una incapacidad, por una deportación, pues usted le puede dar el poder a una persona para que administre su empresa, para que tenga acceso a sus cuentas, para que pueda de alguna manera reclamar algunos bienes. Y eso es importantísimo y la mayoría no hacemos esto. Y estos son servicios que dice aquí el abogado Michael, que lo provee a través de su firma, que son fundamentales, el poder, el power of attorney. El otro también es un trust, que es como un documento de confianza que usted puede firmar. Esto inclusive dentro de las parejas debería existir, debe hacerse para poder tener tranquilidad por si pasa algo con cualquiera de los miembros de una familia o de una empresa. Y algo fundamental que también nos nombra el abogado Michael el día de hoy es un testamento. Sin duda nosotros como seres humanos a veces no nos gusta hablar de lo que será el futuro, sí o sí, todos nos vamos a ir. Y el testamento es algo que normalmente, por lo menos aquí en Estados Unidos, existe una cultura de hacer un testamento. Entonces nosotros en la comunidad, por lo menos hispanohablante, qué importante adquirir esa cultura de tener un power of attorney o un trust y un will. Que el will es el testamento, el deseo, usted a quién le quiere dejar sus bienes o cómo quieren que se administren, y eso en un determinado momento de fallecer, pues facilitará las cosas como usted lo ha deseado en vida para las personas que quedan aquí. Entonces, qué importante tener esta información clara, porque es una realidad, estamos todos aquí, pero mañana no estaremos. So it's very important this information because today we're here, tomorrow we know our future, we're not going to be here.
That's true, and I think that's what's important for people to plan. And I'm not just speaking to immigrants. I'm speaking to my own friends, my own family. Because as lawyers, we constantly are involved in situations where people did not plan, and it becomes much more expensive and much more complicated if there is no planning. So thank you very much for allowing me to get that message out.
No, thank you so much. Mr. Michael Mogil was here with Florido, with all this important information about the legal information that is important for everyone, not even if it is immigration or not immigration or real estate or whatever you need. For sure, here is going to be all the information from your law firm, Mogil Law Firm. So if you guys want to contact, here's all the information. La verdad que agradecemos mucho al abogado Michael Mogil por haber estado aquí en Flow con Florido. Toda la información también de contacto está aquí para que usted pueda llamar o contactar si necesita o un tema de inmigración o un tema de real estate o un tema también de estos poderes, testamentos, asesoría en estos campos que son naturales de la vida. Así que ha sido un placer estar aquí hoy con Michael Mogil, un experto abogado que nos amplía esta información hoy en Flow con Florido. So thank you so much again.
Thank you very much.